There was once a time that I believed that the worst thing I could be was female. I felt isolated from girls and others. I fit in better with the boys. I hated the sight of my growing breasts. I hated the comments I would get about my body from a young age. I began puberty at no older than 9 years old. I saw how girls and women were portrayed in media, from cartoons to Instagram posts to porn. I tore myself apart because on all fronts, there was some ideal that I failed to achieve. I had no strong female role models to base myself off of, only the clumsy caricatures of women that I saw on screens. The girls and women I knew growing up always talked about how horrible being a woman is, how terrible periods are, how unbelievably painful pregnancy and childbirth are, and never the blessings that come with any of it. This association with femininity was inevitable. My double mastectomy at 15 years old was also, unfortunately, inevitable. Afterwards, I learned that this was a universal feeling among girls and young women, and that most of them grew out of it relatively unscathed. I wasn't afforded that luxury. I was fast-tracked down a destructive path, including puberty blockers and testosterone, at 13 years old, by the very physicians that meet here today. I'm Chloe Cole. I come here today to represent fellow detransitioners and to sound the alarm on these abusive practices. Yesterday, I announced Detrans United, an organization dedicated to supporting detransitioners and their causes. Our first initiative was to write a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland in response to a letter AAP, APA, and Children's Hospital Association sent to Garland, requesting censorship of criticisms of a so-called affirmative care model. The letter reads as follows. Dear Attorney General Garland, we are writing as a group of individuals who formerly identified as transgender. Many of us were young teenagers when we decided, on the direction of medical experts, to pursue irreversible hormone treatments and surgeries to bring our bodies into closer alignment with what we thought was our true gender identity. Many of us had extensive histories of mental illness. Many of us had experienced significant childhood trauma. But all of this was ignored because we uttered the word gender. This utterance placed us on a narrow medical pathway that led us to sacrifice our healthy bodies and future fertility in obeisance to the claim that our suffering was the result of having a gender identity that did not match our biological sex. In other words, we were born in the wrong body. We didn't know better. We were young, and we trusted our doctors. Our parents were also misled. They were told the common myth that if they did not affirm our new identities, which entailed fully approving our medical transition, then we would likely commit suicide. Given these options, what loving parent wouldn't choose to transition their child? This is not informed consent, but a decision forced under extreme duress. Some of us have chosen to speak out publicly about the harm that gender-affirming care has caused us, but most detransitioners choose to remain silent or anonymous, because unlike the joyful and supportive communities that welcome all who transition, no such loving community awaits us. Instead, we are routinely harassed and browbeaten into silence for being an inconvenience to proper narratives around gender. But our growing population is becoming impossible to ignore, and others have started amplifying our suppressed voices by denouncing the uncontrolled medical experiments being performed on children in hospitals in the name of gender-affirming care. The American Medical Association, American Academy of Pediatrics, and Children's Hospital Association fully endorse the gender affirmation model of care, which prevents medical professionals from questioning a child's self-reported transgender identity and from exploring possible underlying factors causing their dysphoria. These endorsements, however, run counter to the recommendation of other countries such as Sweden, Finland, and the UK. who have conducted systematic reviews of evidence and concluded unanimously, that the risks and uncertainties outweigh any known benefits. American medical organizations have not conducted a systematic review of the evidence. Their recommendations are based on a small number of badly flawed studies and ignore contravening evidence from other studies, precisely what systematic reviews are meant to prevent. The recent letter by these groups calling on the DOJ to put pressure on social media companies to censor who they portray as high-profile users on social media sharing false and misleading information is nothing more than an attempt to silence the reasonable voices of concerned critics calling for a more cautious approach to experimental medical practices impacting vulnerable children. We condemn all violence, threats of violence, and intimidation directed at physicians and hospital staff without caveat. And anyone who engages in such behavior should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But we also cannot ignore the harms being carried out against countless children in the name of gender affirmation that constitute much more than just mere threats. We bear the literal scars of this medical violence. The medical safeguarding of children should not be a political issue. Since truth is a prerequisite for justice, we must ensure that the already hot embers of political tribalism are not stoked. Children deserve the best evidence-based medical care available. Silencing the victims and critics of gender-affirming practices is not a pathway to truth and justice, but to ignorance and further harm. Please do the right thing. Children deserve better. Thank you.